I should have known something was wrong when I heard laughter coming from my own bedroom at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Real laughter, not the polite chuckles Lena usually reserved for my jokes or the forced giggles she used with clients at her law firm. My name is Damon Vossel, and I install security systems for a living. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days protecting other people's homes while mine was being violated right under my nose. I'd come back early from a job in Millbrook because the client had changed their mind about the whole setup. Happens more than you'd think in this business. People get paranoid, then they get cheap, then they get paranoid again. It's a cycle that keeps me employed in this worn-down city where trust is as scarce as good-paying jobs. The house was supposed to be empty. Lena had court all day, or so she'd told me over coffee that morning while scrolling through her phone with that distant look she'd been wearing for months. Our place sits in one of those middle-tier neighborhoods where people pretend they're doing better than they are. Nice enough houses with decent lawns, but you can still hear the highway if you listen close. I parked in the driveway next to Lena's BMW, which should have been downtown at the courthouse. Strike one. The front door was locked, which meant whoever was inside didn't want to be disturbed. Strike two. The laughter got louder as I climbed the stairs, mixed now with a man's voice I didn't recognize. My hand hesitated on the bedroom door handle. 20 years of marriage, and I was standing outside my own bedroom like some kind of intruder. I turned the handle, locked from the inside. Strike three. "Lena?" I called out, my voice carrying that fake casual tone you use when you're about to catch someone in the act. "You home?" The laughter stopped. Footsteps. Whispers. "Just a minute," came Lena's voice, pitched higher than usual. "I'm changing." Changing. Right. I'd been installing security systems long enough to know when someone was stalling. I also knew that our bedroom door lock was a cheap interior model that could be opened with a butter knife if you knew what you were doing. Good thing I knew what I was doing. The door swung open to reveal my wife of 20 years, scrambling to pull a sheet around herself while a guy I'd never seen before tried to squeeze his considerable bulk through our second-story window. He was wearing expensive-looking boxer shorts and nothing else, his gym-sculpted chest glistening with sweat. "Damon!" Lena's face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds. "You're early. I thought you had that job in Millbrook." "Client canceled." I leaned against the doorframe, watching the mystery man struggle with the window screen. "Need help there, buddy? That's a 15-foot drop to the rose bushes." The guy, late 30s, dark hair, the kind of tan you get from a salon, finally managed to get one leg through the window. "This isn't what it looks like," he said, which had to be the stupidest thing anyone had ever said while half naked in another man's bedroom. "Really?" I kept my voice level, conversational. "Because it looks like you're screwing my wife in my bed while wearing what appears to be very expensive underwear. Calvin Klein, if I'm not mistaken." Lena clutched the sheet tighter. "Damon, please, let me explain." "Oh, I'd love an explanation, but first, let's help Romeo here make his dramatic exit." I walked over to the window and gave the guy a helpful shove. He tumbled out with a yelp that was probably heard 3 houses down. "His name is Tony," Lena said quietly. "Tony." I nodded like this was useful information. "Tony what? Tony from your office? Tony the personal trainer? Tony the marriage counselor?" "Tony Rivas. He's a partner at the firm." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Of course he was. I looked around the room, my room, with my furniture and my pictures and my life scattered all over it. Lena's clothes were draped over the chair I'd bought her for Christmas. Tony's pants were in a heap by the closet. "How long?" I asked. Lena's green eyes, the ones I'd fallen for in college, couldn't meet mine. "It's not what you think. We were just—" "How long?" 6 months. 6 months. I did the math in my head. That took us back to around the time she'd started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. The same time she'd joined that new gym downtown. The same time she'd started keeping her phone face down during dinner. I heard a car door slam outside. Through the window, I watched Tony limp across the front yard toward a silver Mercedes, still shirtless, carrying his clothes in a bundle. Mrs. Judd from next door was watering her garden and staring openly. This was going to be all over the neighborhood by dinner time. "I need some air," I said, turning toward the door. "Damon, wait! We need to talk about this." "Do we? Because it seems pretty clear to me." I paused in the doorway. "By the way, you might want to check the window screen. I think Tony damaged it on his way out. Wouldn't want any actual burglars getting in." I was halfway down the stairs when I heard our front door open. Cole's voice echoed up from the entryway. "Dad? Mom? Whose car is that in the driveway with no shirt on?" My 18-year-old son stood in the foyer, backpack slung over his shoulder, staring out the front window at Tony's retreating Mercedes. Cole was home from his first semester at State, looking more like a man than the kid who'd left for college just 3 months ago. "That," I said, "is an excellent question." Cole looked from me to the stairs, where Lena had appeared wrapped in her bathrobe, her hair still messy, her face flushed. He wasn't stupid. None of us were stupid. We all knew exactly what had just happened. "Oh," Cole said quietly. "Oh, wow." The three of us stood there in our middle-class foyer, surrounded by the normal stuff of normal life. Cole's high school graduation picture on the wall, Lena's law book stacked on the side table, my work boots by the door, while everything we'd built together crumbled around us. "Cole, honey," Lena started down the stairs. "This isn't... Mom!" Cole held up a hand. "Just don't. Not right now." He shouldered his backpack and headed for the kitchen. A moment later, I heard the back door slam. Lena and I were alone again. "We need to talk," she said. "Yeah," I agreed. "We do, but not right now. Right now, I need to think." I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Behind me, Lena called my name, but I didn't turn around. Outside, Mrs. Judd was still watering her garden, and I could see her trying to look busy while obviously waiting for more drama. "Afternoon, Mrs. Judd," I called out. "Oh, hello, Damon. Everything all right? I thought I heard some commotion." "Just Tony from Lena's law firm. Had a little accident with our upstairs window. You know how clumsy lawyers can be." I climbed into my truck and drove toward downtown, my mind racing. 20 years of marriage, 6 months of lies. One afternoon that changed everything. The thing about installing security systems is that you learn to think like both the good guys and the bad guys. You have to understand how people break into places, how they disable alarms, how they get past locks and cameras and motion sensors. You have to think 3 steps ahead of someone who's trying to outsmart you. As I drove through the streets of our tired little city, past the abandoned mall and the closed factories, past the river that separated the nice neighborhoods from the rough ones, I started thinking like the bad guy, and I started planning. Finn's Bar, the Rusty Bell, sits in the kind of neighborhood where people mind their own business and pay in cash. It's the perfect place to drink beer and think dark thoughts, which is exactly what I was doing 3 hours after catching my wife with Tony from the law firm. Finn Harlow had been my best friend since high school, back when we both thought we'd make something of ourselves in this city. He'd become a cop, I'd learned a trade, and we'd both watched our hometown slowly decay around us. Now he owned a bar that catered to off-duty cops, construction workers, and guys like me who needed somewhere to go when their lives fell apart. "So, let me get this straight," Finn said, sliding another beer across the scarred wooden bar. "You caught them in the act. The guy jumped out your window, and your kid walked in right after?" "That's the summary, yeah." Finn shook his head. He was a big guy, built like the linebacker he'd been in high school, with graying hair and the kind of face that made people confess things they didn't mean to. 20 years, man, that's rough. The thing that gets me is how stupid they were about it. My bedroom, middle of the afternoon, his fancy car in the driveway. Either they wanted to get caught, or they thought I was too dumb to figure it out. Maybe both. Finn wiped down a glass with practiced efficiency. What are you going to do? Good question. The smart thing would be to call a lawyer, start divorce proceedings, try to salvage what I could of my life and my relationship with Cole. The mature thing would be to sit down with Lena and have a civilized conversation about how to end our marriage with minimal damage to everyone involved. But I wasn't feeling particularly smart or mature. I'm going to make them pay, I said. Finn raised an eyebrow. Pay how? I don't know yet, but they humiliated me in my own house in front of my son. They've been lying to me for 6 months, making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong. They deserve whatever they get. Careful, Damon. Don't do anything you can't take back. I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for the advice and the beer. I'll talk to you later. Where are you going? Home. I've got some research to do. The house was dark when I got back. Lena's car was gone, and Cole's bedroom light was off. I had the place to myself, which was perfect for what I had in mind. The thing about being married to a lawyer is that you pick up certain skills over the years. You learn about evidence and documentation. You learn that the person with the best records usually wins. You learn that information is power. I started in Lena's home office, a converted spare bedroom where she kept her personal files and her laptop. She'd always been paranoid about privacy, which I'd attributed to lawyer habits. Now I wondered what else she'd been hiding. Her laptop was password protected, but I'd watched her type it enough times to know it was Cole's birthday, followed by her maiden name. Not very creative for someone who supposedly dealt with confidential information all day. Her email was a goldmine. Not just the obvious stuff with Tony, though there was plenty of that, including some very detailed messages about what they'd been doing in hotel rooms around the city. But other things, messages with her sister Mira about handling Damon, conversations with a divorce attorney about asset protection, plans for after she left me. The timeline was clear. This wasn't just an affair. This was an exit strategy. According to the emails, Lena had been planning to leave me for months. She'd already consulted with a lawyer about getting the house, alimony, and primary custody of Cole. She'd been moving money into accounts I didn't know about. She'd even been documenting incidents of what she called my controlling behavior and anger issues. Anger issues. Right. Because discovering your wife's affair and being upset about it was apparently a character flaw. The worst part was reading her messages to Tony about me. How I was getting suspicious and asking too many questions. How I was just a security installer who didn't understand her world. How she couldn't wait to be free of our suffocating suburban life. 20 years of marriage, reduced to complaints in an email to her lover. I copied everything to a flash drive and kept digging. Lena was methodical, I'd give her that. She had spreadsheets tracking our joint assets, research on divorce law, even notes about which of our friends would likely take her side in a split. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. See, the thing about installing security systems is that you learn to be thorough. You learn to check every angle, every vulnerability, every possible way someone might try to breach your defenses. And right now, Lena and Tony had a lot of vulnerabilities. I spent the next 2 hours building a dossier. Tony Rivas, partner at Morrison, Klein and Associates. Married to a woman named Patricia, 2 kids in private school, big house in Riverside Heights, the fancy part of town across the river. Member of an exclusive country club. Drove a Mercedes, worked out at an upscale gym, had season tickets to the symphony. Tony had a lot to lose. Lena did too. Her law firm had a strict policy about relationships between partners. Her reputation in the legal community was built on being the reliable, ethical choice for family law. Her social circle was full of people who valued appearances above everything else. They'd both been careless, and careless people make mistakes. I just had to figure out how to exploit those mistakes. My phone buzzed. Text message from Lena. "We need to talk. I'm staying at Mira's tonight, but we can't avoid this forever." I typed back, "You're right. Tomorrow night. Dinner. We'll figure this out like adults." Her response came quickly. "Thank you. I know this is hard, but we can work through this. Work through this." Like her 6-month affair was some kind of minor marital hiccup we could resolve with counseling and compromise. I had news for her. We weren't working through anything, but I was happy to let her think we were, at least until I finished what I'd started. I closed her laptop and headed upstairs to check on Cole. His door was closed, but I could see light underneath. I knocked softly. "Come in." He was sitting on his bed with his own laptop, probably trying to process what he'd witnessed that afternoon. Cole had always been a good kid, smart, responsible, the kind of son who made you proud to be a father. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this mess. "How are you doing?" I asked. He shrugged. "I've been better. Is it true? About Mom and that guy?" "Yeah, it's true." "How long?" 6 months, according to your mother." Cole nodded slowly. "That explains a lot. She's been different lately, more secretive, always on her phone. I thought maybe she was planning a surprise party or something." Surprise party. That's one way to put it. "What happens now?" I sat down in his desk chair, the same one I'd helped him with homework in back when his biggest problems were algebra tests and science projects. "I don't know yet, but whatever happens, it's between your mother and me. You don't have to pick sides." "What if I want to pick sides?" That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what she did was wrong, really wrong. And the way she's been acting lately, like she's too good for this house and this neighborhood and—" He paused. "Like she's too good for us." I felt something twist in my chest. Cole was 18, old enough to understand what he'd seen, old enough to make his own judgments. And apparently, he'd been making them for a while. "Your mother loves you," I said. "Whatever else is happening, that hasn't changed." "Does she? Because it feels like she's been trying to get away from all of us for months." I didn't have a good answer for that. Based on what I'd read in her emails, Cole wasn't wrong. Lena had been planning her escape from our entire life, not just our marriage. "Try to get some sleep," I said. "Tomorrow's going to be complicated." "Dad?" Cole called as I reached the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to you. You didn't deserve it." I nodded and closed the door behind me. Then I went back downstairs to continue planning my revenge. The next evening, I cooked Lena's favorite meal: salmon with that lemon herb sauce she'd learned from her mother, wild rice, steamed asparagus. I even opened a bottle of the wine we'd been saving for our anniversary. If we were going to have our big conversation, we might as well do it right. She arrived at 6:30, looking nervous but determined. Lena had always been beautiful in that polished, professional way that made other men look twice when we were out together. Tonight she was wearing a black dress I'd bought her for Christmas, which felt like either an apology or an insult. Maybe both. "This smells wonderful," she said, hanging her coat in the closet like nothing had changed. I figured we should do this properly. I gestured toward the dining room. "Wine?" "Please." We sat across from each other at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we'd helped Cole with homework, where we'd planned vacations and discussed our days and built what I'd thought was a life together. The salmon was perfectly cooked. The wine was excellent. The conversation was about to get very interesting. "I know you're angry," Lena began. Angry. I cut a piece of salmon, chewed thoughtfully. "That's one word for it. I never meant for you to find out this way. Tony and we were going to end it. We knew it was wrong." "Were you?" "Because your emails suggest otherwise." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "My emails?" "Your laptop password is Cole's birthday plus Morel. Not exactly Fort Knox security for someone who handles confidential legal documents. Lena set down her fork. You went through my private correspondence? I went through my wife's emails after I caught her cheating in our bedroom. Call me old-fashioned, but I figured I had a right to know what was going on in my own marriage. You had no right to violate my privacy. I almost laughed. Your privacy? Lena, you've been screwing another man for 6 months and planning to divorce me without telling me. I think your privacy concerns are a little misplaced. She took a sip of wine, regrouping. Lena was a good lawyer, and good lawyers know when to change tactics. You're right. I handled this badly. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. Honest about what? The affair or the fact that you've been planning to leave me since before it started? Another pause. You read all of them. Every single one, including the ones where you and Tony laugh about how clueless I am, including the ones where you call our marriage suffocating and our neighborhood beneath you, including the ones where you discuss how to maximize your settlement in the divorce. Lena's professional composure was starting to crack. Those were private thoughts. People say things in emails that they don't really mean. Do they? Because it seemed like you meant every word, especially the part about documenting my controlling behavior to use against me in custody proceedings. I was protecting myself. From what? From me working 2 jobs to pay for this house? From me supporting your career even when it meant I had to turn down better opportunities? From me being a faithful husband for 20 years while you screwed around with your law partner? You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The firm, the cases, trying to make partner while managing everything at home. Everything at home? When's the last time you cooked dinner? When's the last time you helped Cole with anything? When's the last time you acted like you wanted to be part of this family? Lena's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen her cry in front of juries before. She was good at it. I know I've made mistakes, she said, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. Our problems? Lena, you've been planning to leave me for months. You've been stealing money from our joint accounts. You've been building a case to take Cole away from me. Those aren't problems. That's betrayal. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. You hurt me, you hurt Cole, and you hurt yourself. Because now I know exactly who you really are. She leaned forward, trying to salvage the conversation. Damon, please. I know you're angry, but think about Cole. Think about what's best for our family. I am thinking about Cole. I'm thinking about how he walked into our house yesterday and saw his mother's affair partner jumping out a second-story window. I'm thinking about how he's been watching you check out of our family for months. I'm thinking about how you've been planning to uproot his life without considering what he wants. He'll adjust. Kids are resilient. He'll adjust to what? To you moving him across town to be closer to Tony? To him spending weekends with a father you're trying to paint as unstable? To you destroying everything he's ever known because you got bored with your suburban life? Lena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. What do you want, Damon? There it was. The real Lena, the one who appeared when the charm and manipulation stopped working. The one who reduced everything to negotiation and leverage. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, I said. I want you to realize that you can't just blow up 20 years of marriage and expect everyone to smile and go along with it. Fine, you want to punish me? I get it. But we still have to figure out how to move forward. Do we? Because I'm not sure there is a way forward. Not for us. She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. There has to be. We have too much history together to throw it all away. I looked down at her hand, the same hand that had worn my ring for 20 years, the same hand that had been touching another man yesterday afternoon. Then I looked up at her face, searching for some sign of the woman I'd married, the one who'd promised to love and honor me until we were both old and gray. I didn't see her anywhere. You're right, I said finally. We do have history, but history isn't enough anymore. I pulled my hand away and stood up. I'm going to stay at Finn's for a few days. Give us both some space to think. When I come back, we'll talk about lawyers and custody and how to divide up 20 years of marriage. Damon, wait. No, I'm done waiting. I'm done being the understanding husband who makes excuses for his wife's behavior. I'm done pretending this is something we can fix with counseling and compromise. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. Enjoy the salmon and the wine. Consider it a going-away present. I was almost to the door when she called after me. You think you're so much better than me, but you're not. You're just a small-town guy with a small-town job who never had the ambition to want more. I turned around. You're right. I never wanted more than a faithful wife and a happy family. Apparently that was asking too much. I left her sitting at our dining room table, surrounded by the ruins of what we'd built together. And for the first time since I'd caught her with Tony, I felt something other than hurt and anger. I felt free. 3 days at Finn's place gave me time to think and plan. His apartment above the bar was small and cluttered, but it was quiet, and it was mine for as long as I needed it. More importantly, it gave me access to Finn's particular set of skills. You sure about this? Finn asked, looking over the documents I'd spread across his kitchen table. Because once you start down this road, there's no going back. I'm sure. What I'd discovered during my investigation went way beyond Lena's affair. Tony Rivas wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was embezzling from his law firm. Small amounts, spread across multiple client accounts, but enough to fund his expensive lifestyle and his hotel meetings with my wife. How'd you figure this out? Finn asked, studying the financial records I'd printed. Lena's emails. She mentioned Tony being worried about an audit, something about client trust funds. So I did some digging. This is serious stuff, Damon. We're talking about attorney misconduct, possibly criminal charges. I know. Finn leaned back in his chair. And you want to what exactly? Turn him in? Eventually. But first, I want him to know I know. I want him to sweat a little. And Lena? Lena's going to learn that her boyfriend isn't the catch she thought he was. I'd spent the last 3 days mapping out Tony's routine. He lived in Riverside Heights, the gated community across the river where the city's elite pretended they were better than the rest of us. He drove his Mercedes to work every morning at 8:15, went to his fancy gym every Tuesday and Thursday evening, had lunch at the country club every Friday. Tony was a creature of habit, which made him predictable. And predictable people were easy to surprise. Thursday evening, I followed him to his gym. Platinum Fitness was the kind of place where memberships cost more than most people's car payments, where the towels were heated and the water bottles were glass. I waited in the parking lot until Tony went inside, then I got to work. I didn't damage his car. That would have been too obvious, too crude. Instead, I left him a message. A simple note under his windshield wiper. Nice car. Would hate for Patricia to know how you're really paying for it. Then I went home to wait. Lena was there when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a stack of legal documents. She looked up when I walked in, her expression carefully neutral. We need to talk, she said. About what? About this. She held up a sheet of paper. Tony got a threatening note today, someone who knows about us. I hung my jacket on the back of a chair and poured myself a cup of coffee. That's unfortunate. Damon, did I what? Leave anonymous notes on cars? Do I look like the kind of person who skulks around parking lots? She studied my face, looking for tells. After 20 years of marriage, she knew most of them, but I'd had 3 days to practice my poker face. Someone knows, she said finally. Someone's watching us. Well, you weren't exactly subtle about it. Half the neighborhood saw Tony jumping out of our bedroom window. Mrs. Judd's probably told everyone at the grocery store by now. This is serious. If word gets out about Tony and me, it could destroy both our careers. Your careers. I sat down across from her. That's what you're worried about. Not our marriage, not our family, not the fact that you've been lying to me for 6 months. Your careers. I'm trying to protect all of us. If this becomes public, you'll both face the consequences of your choices. Actions have results, Lena. You taught me that. She leaned forward, switching to her courtroom voice. Whoever's doing this, they're probably looking for money. People like this always want something. Maybe they just want justice. Justice? She almost laughed. This is blackmail, Damon. It's a crime. So is adultery. So is embezzlement. The words hung in the air between us. Lena's face went pale. What did you say? You heard me. What do you know about embezzlement? I took a sip of coffee, letting her sweat. I know Tony's been skimming from client trust funds to pay for your hotel rooms. I know he's been falsifying billing records to cover the shortfalls. I know he's been using firm resources for personal expenses. That's impossible. Tony's been stealing from his clients for over a year. Check the Morrison account records if you don't believe me. Check the Patterson estate. Check any of the trust funds he's been managing. Lena stared at me like I'd grown a second head. How could you possibly know that? Because I'm not as stupid as you both thought I was. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. This is insane. Tony's a respected attorney. He's up for senior partner. He wouldn't risk everything for what? For you? Because that's exactly what he's been doing. Stealing money to impress his married girlfriend, thinking he's too smart to get caught. I don't believe you. Then ask him. Ask him about the Riverside Trust account. Ask him about the Henderson estate funds. Ask him why he's been so worried about the firm's annual audit. Lena pulled out her phone, then stopped. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what kind of man you've been risking your marriage for. She stared at the phone in her hand, then back at me. What do you want? I want you to understand that your perfect new life isn't so perfect. I want you to realize that Tony isn't your ticket to something better. He's your ticket to professional ruin. And then what? We just pretend none of this happened? Go back to the way things were? No, we're way past that. But maybe now you'll understand why I'm not interested in working things out. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. We need to meet. Tonight, the Rusty Bell. Come alone. I showed Lena the message. Looks like your anonymous admirer wants to chat. Don't go. It could be dangerous. Or it could be someone who knows more than I do about Tony's business practices. Damon, please. Whatever's happening here, we can handle it together. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in days. She was scared, which was something I'd rarely seen. Lena was usually the one in control, the one with all the answers. But right now, she looked lost. We could have handled it together 6 months ago, I said. Before you started sleeping with Tony, before you started planning to leave me, before you decided our marriage was suffocating and our life was beneath you. I never said. You said exactly that. In your emails to Tony, in your messages to your sister, in your conversations with your divorce attorney. She sat back down, deflated. What happens now? Now I go meet our mysterious correspondent, and you figure out whether you want to stand by Tony when his world collapses, or try to salvage what's left of your own career. I stood up and grabbed my keys. Either way, you'd better call a good lawyer, and not one from Tony's firm. The Rusty Bell was quieter than usual for a Thursday night. Finn was behind the bar, polishing glasses and pretending not to watch the door. I ordered a beer and waited, wondering who had sent the text and what they wanted. I didn't have to wait long. At exactly 9 o'clock, a woman in an expensive coat walked through the door, looked around nervously, then approached my table. She was attractive in that high-maintenance way that screamed money and status. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer handbag, jewelry that probably cost more than my truck. Damon Vossel? She asked. Depends who's asking. Patricia Rivas, Tony's wife. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Have a seat. Can I buy you a drink? I don't drink in places like this. She sat down carefully. like she was afraid the chair might contaminate her outfit. But thank you. So you're the one who's been leaving notes. I'm the one who's been trying to figure out who's been destroying my marriage. She opened her purse and pulled out a small recording device. I think we can help each other. I'm listening. I've known about Tony's affair for weeks. I hired a private investigator, got photos, recorded phone calls, the whole thing. What I didn't know was that he's been stealing from his clients to pay for it. And now you do. Thanks to your anonymous tip. She leaned forward. The question is, what do we do about it? I studied her face. Patricia Rivas was angry, but it was the cold, calculating anger of someone who was used to getting what she wanted. She reminded me of Lena in some ways, polished, professional, dangerous when cornered. What do you want to do about it? I want to destroy him, completely. I want him to lose his job, his reputation, his freedom. I want everyone to know what kind of man he really is. And in return? In return, I help you destroy your wife's career along with his. She reached into her purse again and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Photos of them together, hotel receipts paid for with stolen money, recorded conversations where they laugh about how stupid we are, everything you need to ruin them both. I opened the envelope. The photos were explicit and damaging. The receipts showed a pattern of expensive hotels and restaurants, all paid for with funds that could be traced back to Tony's embezzlement. The recorded conversations were worse than I'd expected, not just intimate talk between lovers, but detailed discussions of how to hide their affair and plan their future together. This is comprehensive, I said. I'm thorough. It's why Tony married me, and it's why I'm going to destroy him. What's your timeline? Tomorrow night, there's a charity gala at the Riverside Country Club. Tony's being honored for his pro bono work. She smiled coldly. Half the city's legal community will be there. It's the perfect venue for a public humiliation. I thought about it. A public confrontation would be satisfying, but it would also be messy. Cole would be humiliated along with everyone else. And there was something about Patricia Rivas that made me nervous. She was too eager, too prepared, too willing to destroy everything in her path. What about your kids? I asked. They're away at school. They'll survive. Kids are resilient. The same thing Lena had said about Cole. These people talked about their children like they were accessories that could be stored away when they became inconvenient. I need to think about this, I said. There's nothing to think about. They humiliated us. Now we humiliate them. And after that? What happens when the smoke clears and we're all left dealing with the wreckage? Patricia's expression hardened. After that, we pick up the pieces and move on, without them. I closed the envelope and slid it back across the table. I can't do this. What? I can't be part of destroying people in public no matter what they've done. It's not who I am. They didn't worry about who you were when they were laughing about you in hotel rooms. Maybe not, but I'm not them. Patricia snatched the envelope back. You're making a mistake. This is your chance to make them pay for what they did to you. Maybe, but it's also my chance to be better than they are. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. You're weak. No wonder your wife cheated on you. The words hit like a physical blow, but I didn't react. Maybe you're right, but I'd rather be weak than be like you. She stormed out without another word, leaving me alone with my beer and my thoughts. Finn came over and sat down across from me. Heard most of that, he said. You sure you made the right call? No, but it's the call I can live with. So what now? Now I go home and try to figure out how to save what's left of my family. But when I got home, the house was empty. Lena's car was gone, and there was a note on the kitchen table. Gone to warn Tony about Patricia. We need to talk when I get back. This isn't over. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over, but it wasn't going to end the way any of us expected. My phone rang. Cole's number. Dad? I just saw Mom leaving Tony's building downtown. What's going on? Where are you? At Mark's apartment near campus. I came down to get some of my stuff and saw her car. Stay there, don't come home tonight. Why? What's happening? I looked around the empty house, at the evidence of 20 years of marriage scattered on every surface, and tried to figure out how to explain that his mother was choosing her lover over her family one more time. I'll call you in the morning, I said. We'll figure this out together. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and tried to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. The kind who destroyed his enemies, or the kind who found another way to win. By morning, I'd made my choice. The next morning brought news that changed everything. I was drinking coffee and reading the paper when my phone rang. Finn's voice was tense. Turn on Channel 7. Now. I grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. A reporter was standing outside the offices of Morrison, Klein and Associates, speaking into the camera with barely contained excitement. The FBI raid began at 6 this morning, with agents removing boxes of documents and computer equipment. Sources inside the district attorney's office confirm that the investigation centers on alleged embezzlement of client trust funds. The camera panned to show Tony Rivas being led out of the building in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face pale with shock. Behind him, I could see other partners from the firm, including Lena, watching from the lobby windows. Anthony Rivas, a partner at the prestigious law firm, has been charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and theft of client funds totaling more than $200,000. I turned off the television and called Finn back. Patricia moved fast, I said. Looks like it. But here's the thing. Word is, the tip didn't come from her. What do you mean? I've got a friend in the DA's office. Says the information came from an anonymous source who provided detailed financial records and documentation. Someone with access to internal firm records. Someone like Lena. Someone who knew Tony's business practices intimately and had decided to save herself before the ship went down completely. My phone buzzed. Text from Lena. Coming home. We need to talk. She arrived an hour later, looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Her professional composure was completely gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before, genuine fear. I suppose you saw the news, she said, sitting down at the kitchen table. Hard to miss. FBI raids tend to make headlines. I didn't know, Damon. About the embezzlement. I swear I didn't know. But you figured it out. She nodded slowly. Last night, after you told me about the trust funds, I went to Tony's office and looked at the records myself. It was all there, exactly like you said. So you turned him in. I had to. If I'd waited, if they'd discovered I knew about it and didn't report it, I could have been charged as an accessory. My career, my law license, everything would have been gone. I poured myself another cup of coffee, letting her sit with the weight of what she'd done. How does it feel? How does what feel? Throwing Tony under the bus to save yourself. Her eyes flashed with anger. I didn't throw him under anything. He's a criminal, Damon. He stole money from clients, from widows and orphans and people who trusted him. He deserved what happened to him. And the affair? Did he deserve that too? Or was that just a happy accident? She was quiet for a long moment. The affair was a mistake, a terrible mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life. Which part do you regret? The cheating, or getting caught? All of it. I regret all of it. I studied her face, looking for signs of the woman I'd married 20 years ago. She was still there, somewhere under the fear and regret and professional calculation. But she was buried pretty deep. What happens now? I asked. Now we try to salvage what's left. The firm is going to survive. The other partners are clean, and we're cooperating fully with the investigation. My job is safe, my license is safe, my reputation will recover. I wasn't asking about your career. I know what you were asking. She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I'm asking if there's any chance for us, any way to rebuild what we had. I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. Do you love me? The question seemed to surprise her. Of course I love you. Do you? Or do you love the idea of not being alone? Do you love having someone to come home to now that Tony's in jail and your perfect escape plan has collapsed? That's not fair, isn't it? 6 months ago, you were planning to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. Yesterday, you were running to warn your lover about his wife's revenge plot. Today, you're asking me to forgive and forget because suddenly I'm your best option again. Tears started running down her cheeks, real ones this time, not the courtroom variety. I made terrible choices. I hurt you and Cole and myself, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way back to each other. Maybe not, but it means we can't go back to the way things were. That marriage is over, Lena. The question is whether we can build something new. What would that look like? I don't know. Counseling, maybe. Separate bedrooms for a while. Complete honesty about everything. Your affairs, your plans, your feelings about our life together. And time. A lot of time. She nodded eagerly. I can do that. I want to do that. And if you ever lie to me again about anything, we're done. No second chances, no explanations, no working it out. Done. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't a negotiation, Lena. This isn't a legal settlement where we both compromise and move on. This is me giving you one chance to prove that the woman I married is still in there somewhere. She is. I promise she is. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our suburban street where Mrs. Judd was walking her dog and the mailman was making his rounds. Normal life, continuing despite the chaos that had consumed our house for the past week. Cole's coming home this afternoon, I said. You're going to apologize to him. Not for the affair, that's between adults, but for the way you've been treating him, for checking out of his life, for making him feel like he wasn't important enough to keep you here. Of course. And you're going to mean it. Because if I find out you're just going through the motions, if I discover you're still planning your exit strategy while pretending to work on our marriage, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. She flinched at the threat, but nodded. I understand. Good. Because Patricia Rivas isn't the only one with photos and recordings. I've been documenting everything since the day I caught you with Tony. Your emails, your financial records, your conversations with divorce attorneys, everything. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself, just like you were when you started building your case against me for being controlling and unstable. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. We sat there, two people who'd shared 20 years of marriage, trying to figure out if we had any future together. I don't know if this will work, I said finally. Neither do I. But I want to try. Why? And don't tell me it's because you love me. Tell me the real reason. She was quiet for a long time, thinking. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd heard it in years. Because I'm tired of being the person I became. The person who could cheat on her husband and plan to destroy her family and think she was justified because she deserved something better. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I want to be the person you fell in love with again. I want to remember why that person was worth being. It wasn't the answer I'd expected, but it was honest in a way that gave me hope. Okay, I said. We'll try. But we're doing this my way, on my timeline, with my rules. What are your rules? Rule 1, complete honesty, even when it hurts. Rule 2, no contact with Tony or anyone connected to him. Rule 3, counseling, individual and couples. Rule 4, you earn back my trust and Cole's trust through actions, not words. And Rule 5? Rule 5 is that there is no Rule 5. You screw this up and we're done forever. She nodded. I can live with those rules. We'll see. My phone rang. Cole's number. Dad, I just heard about Tony on the news. Is Mom okay? I looked at Lena, sitting at our kitchen table with tears on her cheeks and hope in her eyes, and tried to figure out how to explain that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is also the thing that saves you. "Yeah," I said. "I think she's going to be okay. We all are." For the first time in 6 months, I actually believed it might be true.